Want to know some insider info and behind the scenes secrets about being in a West End show? Then you clicked on the right video. Hi everyone, my name's Georgie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm an actor. I've performed in the West End in lots of different shows, and I've done videos like this before, and you guys absolutely love them. So I'm back with another Secrets of the West End video, sharing with you guys some of the lesser known things that people don't really talk about to do with being in a West End show. So if you like the West End, if you like theatre, just keep on watching the video. So if you ever gone to see a show, you've been really excited about seeing a certain actor in a role, and then you get there and you realise that that actor isn't performing and is actually someone completely different. Well, my friend, that is actually an all too common occurrence. And as most of you probably know, most lead roles in West End shows have what is called an understudy, someone that plays the role when the person who was cast in the role is either ill or on holiday. So in those instances, the understudy will go on. It depends on the show, but in most West End shows, there are multiple understudies. So there is normally something that is called a first cover, a second cover, and then even sometimes a third cover. And then even sometimes what is called an alternate. And an alternate and a first cover are also very different things. So I know most people probably are aware that there are understudies in shows, but a lot of people don't realise quite how many understudies there are, and depending on the show, this can be completely different. And there is also something completely different called a standby, which is, say for example in Wicked, someone that is the standby for Elphaba. So someone that is literally waiting in the wings in case anything happens, ready to go on at the drop of a hat at a moment's notice. And this is very different to an alternate, first cover, second cover, third cover, but I think I'll go into that in more detail in another video. That wasn't actually even the point of this point. The point of this point was that you may be surprised to know that pretty much every single night in a West End show, it is not the full cast performing. So I know a lot of the times there's quite a lot of beef, shall we say, on social media of people being annoyed when certain actors aren't on. And I think that people think if an actor's off, they've got really unlucky or are seeing sort of like a one-off version of this show without the actor in it that normally plays the role. And that's not actually the case. Pretty much every night, someone is off. Whether that's an ensemble member, therefore a swing would be on in their place, whether that's a lead role and their first cover is on, whether that's a supporting role and their second cover is on, and then the person who is the first cover for that role is playing the lead role. It's a headache. But the point I'm trying to make is, it is not odd to be seeing an understudy or someone else playing the role. These people had to audition just the same, prove that they could play the role, and I think that's something that not a lot of people realise. It's not really that strange to be seeing different people playing roles in West End shows. It's kind of more odd to be seeing a full cast, especially with a long-running show. The main reason, of course, is because everyone gets their allocated holiday. So everyone will take their week's holiday here, 3 days holiday there, and when everyone is doing that back-to-back, it means that pretty much, apart from maybe press night and closing night, there aren't many nights where it is the full cast. So I just thought that was interesting, because I know that sometimes people can get a bit funny about seeing understudies, and I'm like, well, you're probably most likely seeing an understudy if you go and watch West End show. Another little insight, this is a two-parter again, is all about opening night. Opening night is not really opening night. Let me explain. This is different depending on whether it's a new show or a long-running musical, say Phantom of the Opera, for example. When a new show opens, opening night is actually first preview, so it's not really opening night. When the show officially opens, that night is opening night, and that night is called press night. Now, press night is a really, really important night in theatre. This is the night that the critics come and watch the show, and after that they are able to review the show. So this is typically how it's done. You have maybe a week to 2 weeks of previews, and then after the previews you will have press night, and then after press night, that is kind of the way the show is set, so there aren't really any changes. And so opening night, press night, is a really, really important night for theatre, because it can actually make or break a show and how long it runs, how well it's received by audiences. So a lot is put into these press night, but it does get a bit confusing, because I do get a lot of people message me sometimes when it's the first preview and be like, happy opening night. And it is the opening night, and it does feel really exciting because it's the first time you're performing in front of an audience, but it's kind of not technically opening night. So it's a bit of a weird one. This is different in long-running shows, of course, because you don't have a week to 2 weeks of previews with a long-running show like something like Les Mis or Phantom, because it just is the same all the time. The other point that I wanted to make on the subject of opening night is that you will normally get a lovely little gift from the producers of the show that you're in, which is so nice, and it depends on the show again. It's not always like this, but on most shows that I've done, on press night, you will receive either a bottle of champagne or something themed towards the show that you're in from the producers. You might get a lovely card, but normally they do try and send something to everybody in the show as a really nice opening night gesture and something that's a really nice memory for you as well. I've got some amazing press night, opening night presents from various shows that I have done. Also, that is the night that your agent typically gets you a present as well. So if you have an agent, if you're represented when you're in a show, they will also get you a gift. Champagne is quite a popular one. Some people do put a lot of thought into their gifts, and I've received some absolutely incredible gifts when I've been in shows. The cast also get each other cards and little gifts and things like that, and people get very creative. So that is something really, really fun that is usually happening behind the scenes on a press night. Let's talk about shows closing now, and this is something that's really sad, and it's always super sad when a show closes. I feel like quite a few shows are closing at the moment for various reasons, and it's always sad. However, it is also nice because it means new shows can come in and take the place of other shows. So, you know, there's the good and the bad with it. But the reason for shows closing is not always what you might think. I think it seems like in most cases a show closes because people aren't coming to watch it, or that it's just not a very good show, and that is just not the case at all. There's so many different things that go into a show closing, and the majority of the time it's not because the show is bad. The amount of people coming to watch it obviously does play a huge part, and that is the reason in a lot of cases. However, it can be to do with things like, for example, a show I was in a few years ago, there was actually another show booked to come into that theatre, so there was a really limited time that we could be in that space, and that's why it didn't end up being a year-long contract. So it can come down to things like that. Scheduling, there's a lot of scheduling that goes into getting different shows into different venues and theatres. It's also really dependent on theatre size if a production ends up even happening in the West End. For example, a chorus line, they had to wait for a theatre that was an appropriate size for the show, and they were very, very specific about that. It had to be a certain size, so they had to wait for the London Palladium, which is where we ended up doing it, to be available so that they could make sure that they had the line exactly how they wanted it. If you haven't seen a chorus line, they all stand in a line, but yeah, that had to be very specific, and the numbers and the spacing had to be really specific too. So there weren't many theatres that could cater to that, so they had to wait for the perfect one, and they were prepared to do that. Not all shows are, and that is why sometimes you can think a show's going to open, or you think a show's going to last for a really long time and it doesn't. So there you go, there's just a few more little secrets for you about the West End that you may not have already known. I would be really interested to hear your thoughts on these. Leave me a comment down below. I'd love to know your thoughts on my point about understudies as well. I'd love to know how many of you have seen an understudy in a role, whether you were happy to see them in the role or whether you were hoping to see the person who played the role. I'd love to know your opinions on this. Also, leave me any video ideas down in the comment section as well, because I always take your guys' video ideas into account, and I've got a long little list that I'm working through of all of your suggestions. I hope you guys all have a lovely day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!